control the interview. But before I answer any questions, I just want to make a quick statement that will make everything easier for all of us. So in this interview, I intend to speak frankly and honestly about myself with a minimum of self-deprecating humor, and I will be restraining, or I will be, I won't be restraining for the sake of appearing less admiring of myself, because that's just a kind of a waste of time. So I'm gonna sound pretty fucking stuck up, probably, but have no fear. I really regard myself no higher than most healthy people regard themselves. So, is the music, is this necessary? I mean, this is your thing.
Generally, I was thinking Travis was just gonna sing something real quick, and then I was gonna say my introduction. After I say Travis, hit the beat.
What is going on?
I was washing my hands while you said that.
What is going on?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Hey,
This is my interview.
Not organized.
Is there an interview on the track?
Yeah,
Who's getting interviewed?
David Blue.
Interesting.
Somebody help me with more walk.
Hit the beat.
Call me Dub A double R-E. N be the N, last letter be the G. G be for gripping, sniffing like Wessons. Niggas that be festin', I'm crushing your whole chest. In combat, if they fat, I'll skinny them 6 times. The terror past the era to millennium. G-Funk, bumpin' in your trunk, call me bougie, nigga. LBC me, nigga. Straight from Long Beach. We get more naughtier than harmony. Can you stay round off handsprings? Do your triple somersault? Fools will be flipped on the show. Long Beach, right by the water. Respect is due when you walk through the borderline. If you don't, you might find your face in a gutter. Long Beach and get your wet. The homie just whistled, gave us the signal. Act the fool with the pistols, pierced the gristle. Where you at, homie? In the cut, he cocked. Beat for weeks, heat for blocks. Techniques to rock for blocks. Unorthodox, cannon cock and bandit, nigga. I deli rock the planet, nigga. Scope out the vicinity, start separate. Those that's cool and those hating. Every nigga in between got 5 seconds to evacuate the scene. Hit the stash, nigga. What the fuck you wanna do? Talk, blast, nigga. Think fast, nigga. Fast. Gangsta love, gangsta love. Hit a nigga with a little gangsta love. Gangsta love. Hit a nigga with a little gangsta love. Gangsta love. Hit a nigga with a little gangsta love. Let's go to war. No, not with guns. Blast you with heat. Original beats, they run fast and faster. Master like P, or you could just say Master Warren G. I'm body. Heidi touted, and I doubt it. If I let another nigga take my tracks and reroute it, I truck more style. Like my Yukon, I puke on the rest of these niggas tryna contest. Hold up, speaking of contest, you know none of that. We get gas, speech technique, rat-a-tat-tat. Splat, nigga, flat, pure, satisfact. X-mark the spot of the brutal vernacular. You drink down like Dracula. Listen here, buddy, you'll be found left bloody. It's the beach, nigga, straight up. Before you hate up, get your weight up, won't get wet up. Now, what up? Yeah, OG. My nigga Warren G. That's my OG. My nigga Nate Dogg. My nigga Snoopy. My nigga RBX. My OGs, my real OGs. up against the aces, nigga. It all takes place in many places, nigga. Several different faces, nigga. The streets can watch me, nigga. But the streets is up against corrupt Muammar Gaddafi, nigga. OG, Juggernaut, jagged edge, homie, 2 to the head. Sprinkle spread, death will kiss ya. Yeah, fuck around with the militia. Stalking to the big homie name walked in. Same old niggas in the same old place. Long Beach City is where I was raised. I keep my heater right by my side. Won't stop flashing till I get my prize. Even if you're blind, we can make you see the perfect combination, egg, 4 and G. When we bust, we hit 'em every time. Ain't no secret, it's about that time to hit a nigga with a little gangsta love. Gangsta love. Hit a nigga with a little gangsta love. Gangsta love. Hit a nigga with a little gangsta love. Gangsta love. Hit a nigga with a little gangsta love. Gangsta love. Gangsta love.
Okay. Hello, I'm Noel Shida, and with me I have David Blue, owner and CEO of Drywall, also noted as a professional shit eater, verified by the FDA. So let's get started. Welcome to the Shithead Blog News. We'll keep this decently short just so it's easy for everyone to read. David's information that he deems worthy will be public at the end of the article, and you can also enjoy this man's content for days, maybe even years. I'm not sure. How long do you believe the Drywall content can sustain a decent fan base, and what is your fan base like at the moment, David?
Well, the content itself will sustain for eternity, more or less, as long as digital human activity survives, and even afterwards, it will live on in radio broadcasts, and it will live on in eternity, as most web content will. However, of course, you have to accept that there's so much content that it'll be lost in the just the sheer volume of content that's out there, right? I want to make sure that I get my official title for legal reasons. I'm actually the CEO and supreme leader of we've been renamed to Drywall Media. So used to be just Drywall
Media.
Yeah, so supreme leader of Drywall Media. Okay, so well, frankly, the Drywall is not really about getting a fan base. If you like, things like Drywall Media are generally started with a plan of action, sort of. But we'll get on. We'll get on to the origin in just a second. I'll save that. But Drywall essentially didn't have a plan of action, and therefore I can't expect of it. I can't expect Drywall Media to be a primarily income. It's not. I don't do drywall. I don't do all the stuff that I do for income. If I did, it would be much more polished and explicit, and you would know that it'd be a lot more purposeful.
Like most websites that do have it for money.
Yes, and that's so. Any Drywall fan base is essentially someone saw this mess, and for whatever reason they stuck with it, and then they identified what is there for humor and what's there. Well, it's really all there for entertainment. So, really, the only steadfast drywall fans. You just have to be like a really big fan of me. Like, wow, I just like David Blue's humor. I like what David Blue has to say about most things. And that's the
So,
nature of this kind of thing. So you really, there are very few drywall fans because it's not niched enough. It's so broad, and I'll explain why eventually.
with you explaining that, what were your first plans for drywall, and how did you expand to what it is today?
This leads us into the origin of everything. I'm going to have to rely on my notes because it took me a long time. This is the first time I've thought about the origin of drywall in a long time. But I summed up most of what I'm about to say in this. Drywall was ultimately my extremely strange way of dealing with adolescence and its related issues like identity, sort of recovering from growing up around religious radicalism, nihilism, rejection of artistic standards, and academic pressure. And probably, really, it's also a big pride thing. So, to explain that, I have to go back and say that I've been obsessed with making all sorts of content of media, as long as I've lived. I kind of have, you could really, there's various causes for that, I think. One, I have an obsession with permanence. So, if I go see something beautiful, I'm going to be the guy that I have the ability to live in the moment, but I'm probably going to want to capture that moment, at least in some function, mostly because my memory is not very good. But factoring that in, for whatever reason, I have an obsession with creating content, content that is permanent, that is adding to myself. I'm obsessed with adding to my portfolio, I guess, in any form. So video, photo, audio, written stuff, anything you can think of. So I had this obsession. I had a childhood being obsessed with creating content. And as a result, by the time I was like 15, I had worked under something like 12 different names. So like YouTube channels, blogs, etc. And the nature of media, you don't want to spread out. You want to make sure that you're as discoverable as possible. So I decided the best option to optimize this, to sort of harness my brain's cyclical method of operating, which I have a fairly static set of interests, but I'm only on one generally at a time, and I'll just kind of rotate between them. So I decided that I would just unite everything under one banner. And I happened to come to this decision during my junior year of high school, during a phase where I was just rejecting all of the work that I'd done in my my childhood, because it was very serious. And when you're isolated and you're not socialized, you don't really have peers to criticize your work. And as soon as I became socialized in high school, I realized just like all of my previous work just made me cringe, So, so I sort of my teen rebellion, my teen angst, was realized in the form of sort of just flipping and rejecting all standards, rejecting a standard of quality, rejecting artistic standards, rejecting effort. Basically, I started just, and I set out to produce, instead of quality content, just as much content as possible that was completely meaningless, with the knowledge that, if I, for example, if I upload 200 videos to YouTube that are just me screaming. If they're tagged correctly and there's a deceiving icon photo cover, whatever those things are. I can't think of what it's called right now, but I might get 5, 10, 50 views on each one of those videos, even though they're completely worthless, and that would add up to a large total view number. And it actually did. When I was in high school, I would take a vlog of my high school lunch table conversation and just upload it to YouTube. And I actually made Partner doing nothing but that. And then again, by 2011, it really didn't take that much to make Partner. I've actually had a total of like 4 channels make Partner.
Yeah. Same.
Sorry, I've got to go through all of this again. Very self-obsessed. But yeah. So
Feel free.
So during the summer and fall of 2011, I guess after I had realized and thought through, I hadn't really thought through it, after my nonsensical urges had peaked, I recorded Hamura, which was the debut Drywall album throughout the summer and fall of 2011, and I really consider its release date, October 28th, 2011, to be the birth of Drywall. The wiki actually just got deleted, but that was on the wiki, the Drywall wiki. Okay,
I believe you were looking for someone to actually document your wiki.
Yeah, I am, actually, mostly because I just don't want to do it, but ironically enough, though these notes are quite unorganized, I've done a lot of the psychoanalysis already and remembering and going back to all these stupid things that I fucking made in high school. Okay. Not only was it the birth of Drywall, but I went from being a very judgmental, sort of neoconservative influenced prick. Like, I was a prick when I was a kid. Like, I was very judgmental of everyone. I wasn't socialized. Just think of, like, you know, there are nerds, there are quiet nerds, and then there are like the really angry, not angry, but those are really stuck up elitist nerds. I was one of those. I always believed that I was better than everyone else my age, that I was smarter. I mean, not literally everyone else, but most of the people around me. Not to the sense where I wanted to prove that to them or even exhibit that, just that I didn't want anything to do with them. I didn't see any value in them. And I was definitely wrong. But the birth of Hamura coincided with me being opened up completely to this huge world of human variety. I mean, I didn't get exposed to much stuff, but as I became socialized, I happened to pick a friend group, highly influential group of individuals, really one specifically, but I'm not going to name his name, that really just exposed me, made me realize how varied the world was, and how much actual variety and activity there is within the human intellect that you don't really see if all you do is watch the Today Show, you know. So all that explanation, I consider that the birth of David Blue, actually. It was not my given name. It's not the name I was born with, David Blue. But David Blue, I think my overwhelming ideal, I guess, my one religion is human variety, and it's around that time it's when I began to appreciate it. So that's when David Blue was born. So the album Hamura itself actually featured, I'll just go down a list of things that I remember here. Sounds of a treadmill. I actually took a condenser microphone, put it right next to the treadmill. I still have that photo, and ran on the treadmill for a bit. The sound of my turn signal indicators. I just came across that fucking sample today. Like it was completely named. It was like named something different, and it's like 20 minutes of a turn signal indicator.
20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wanted to have. I think I just left my phone in there or something. Um,
Jeez.
Also featured the sound of a VHS tape being repeatedly and rhythmically slid in and out of its case. And there's definitely prominently lots of sounds from an original, or not original, but a handmade Native American five-hole flute that I happen to have. And where I live, Columbia, Missouri, has a fairly, we don't, our music scene, if we have a unique one, is really punk, grind, and I was involved in the in high school. I guess I was in a sort of clique that was just the leftovers from any other clique slash the punks. And I never truly fit in with them for one reason. That's because I was never angry. I was the opposite of that. But definitely loved those dudes, and I was heavily influenced by them. In that I basically wanted to make music that was influenced by them, but contained absolutely zero of the emotion. Because I wanted to make anti-music. I wanted to record music that could have absolutely zero function as music. And I still do shit like that. I mean, Children of the Corn 30 is a more mature reflection of that mentality in the film medium. But yeah, so Hamura, it's quite a ride. But that's really that kind of defined. That was the original Drywall. Some other important bits about original Drywall, and I'm talking about the altar here. So there's the institution, Drywall Media. There's the altar of myself, Drywall, and then within that altar, actually, there's Jodie Foster, William Shatner, Bob Geldof, and one more. I forgot. The music, it's actually a virtual band. I won't spend too long on this, but Jodie Foster's on the keyboard, William Shatner's on the flute, David Class handles the drums and the rapping, and Bob Geldof handles the vocals. So Drywall is actually an institution, an altar, and a virtual band within that altar. So, key parts of the Drywall altar, the Drywall joke, this character that we created, include drinking gasoline, eating industrial waste, just generally as behaving in an anti-human way. So, I was making anti-music. This was like an anti-being almost. An obsession with clipping, a phobia of sine waves. I still play on Steam under the Midwest Anti-Sine Wave Alliance, which I started. The Drywall altar lives in a storm drain, dressed in a Thai Air Force jumpsuit with fairy wings, surrounded by old electronics. Around this time we were creating this character, my friends and I were, quote, ironically listening to noise tapes, right? Because I was just I was new to obscure human interests and endeavors in general, and therefore very easily entertained by them. Like the first time you hear a noise tape, it's kind of just, yeah,
It's not something you've heard before.
yeah, when all you've heard is like AC/DC and gospel music, and then someone introduces you to noise. It's a feeling that I really wish that I could have held on to. I wish I would have been writing more then. But and then like obscure tribal instruments. I had like a one-hold ocarina that someone gave me. But so in his storm drain, he lives in there with a bunch of electronics. They're like shorting out because of the water all the time, and he just records himself shrieking all day, and then clips it using electronics. Just amplifies the shit out of it. So it's just clipping noise, and dubs that on tape, and then throws the tape out. So if you stand near the entrance to the drywall layer, the drywall hole, long enough, one of these cassettes will eventually fly out. So I'm kind of repeating myself here. I probably should just mention that. Maybe I'll explain this later. When I, as a child, I thought I was going to be a professional pilot for most of my childhood, up until I was about 16. I took lessons, and I produced a serious vlog series for every lesson I took as a student pilot. I also made some tech videos. I was just kind of caught up in the early days of YouTube and tech journalism, and I really emulated people like Mark Watson and John Rettinger, both of whom I've watched go from like no viewers at all to John Rettinger owns his own fucking media thing, Techno Buffalo. I remember the day that came out. I remember the day that name came out. I'm not sure what Mark Watson's doing now, but Soldier Knows Best and John for Lakers are their old usernames, respectively. So I was making these videos, and I think I was emulating them. Not completely, I wasn't, but I definitely probably included some of their jokes. But it's like basically all the embarrassing things that you did during childhood but don't remember, I archived all of it.
That's actually really smart.
No, it's awful because
I'd want to see myself then, personally.
I mean, it's very painful for me to watch. I archive all of it. I don't delete any of it. I don't intentionally delete anything that I ever do. I keep it all. My Evernote account is like, if Evernote went down, I would be fucked. That would be like a crisis. But though I'm repeating myself, basically I ceased criticism of my own work in this one movement, and I began a process of destroying my own filter, because I realized that the only value, the only time I produce valuable work, is like more or less accidentally. Like I have to do something repetitive. I have to have a foundation of something repetitive. It's best actually exemplified in my piano music when I have a few piano improvs that can be downloaded. davidblue.bandcamp.com. And that's like the only serious music that's out there right now that I've made. Not serious, but
I think you have a few more that I believe are serious.
I mean, drywall is serious in a way. It has become serious. It started out as a, quote, joke, as a rejection of standards. And once I lost the insecurity, I basically, one of the reasons why I stopped putting effort into my work is because when I got socialized, I'm going to look utterly ridiculous making serious aviation vlogs to my friends, right? My friends are not that nerdy, so they're just like, holy shit, this guy's a fucking nerd, So I was insecure, and I was afraid to give off the appearance of putting any effort into what I did. So for a while, I really shit stuff out. Like I created the Drywall Twitter account at I Had to Pee, which still exists. It's still a automated spam machine. I would get home from high school, and this is when TweetDeck allowed you to just tweet just from hitting enter, so you could literally just stay in the tweet interface and like type H enter. Duplicate tweets weren't allowed, but you could literally just keyboard mash and hit the enter key, and you could spam like 10 tweets a second. I would get home, I would just keyboard mash and tweet till I hit the cap, and then I would do that the next day. I did that for a while. I just the reason why I'm talking so much about this when we're talking about drywall is that this is all the drywall originally was the process of me rejecting standards completely. That's why I'm continuing to carry on, and I'm sorry. I'm almost there. I didn't organize this well enough. But so I wanted to, like, I went from really polishing my stuff to getting to the point where everything was, quote, art and nothing meant anything. And that's also, you could really plot a correlation with, that's around the time where I escaped my, a few years after, where I escaped my radical Christian upbringing. And Christianity, for a variety of reasons, we're still on the first question. It has to, I don't want to be like, I'm so quirky, I'm so strange, nobody's like me. You can't put me in a cliche. Please let me know if you can. I'd actually be fascinated by that. I used to revel in how quirky I was. Now, it doesn't really, I don't really care particularly. But, so, because I was so isolated as a child, because I was so obsessed with content, I was totally weird, and drywall was the process of socializing me. It was the mechanism that in which I expressed my adolescence. Okay, we've beat that enough. Still got it. I do want to make a few more points, but we are on the last 10th. I promise.
All right.
So these ideas that I've been talking about are reflected today in a more matured expression. Children of the Corn 30 and Drycast, because the insecurity is gone. The insecurity is gone, but the love of variety is still there. So I'm comfortable with taking pride in the content that I produce. I'm comfortable with putting effort into the quality of the medium and the packaging, but our sort of unique brand of thought, our unique perspective, and the analysis that perspective reaps, it's more clearly communicated. I've gotten better at making it more concise. So all the anti-reason is gone, or at least it's a lot more intelligent now. For instance, Drycast is it's basically like a people journalism mechanism. It's an anti-podcast still, in that its explicit purpose is maximum variety, and what defines a podcast is being very niched. Podcasts are the most niched audio talk shows there are, and Drycast is the opposite of that. And because of that, of course, it'll never have an audience, but it's the only podcast that I particularly care about, I guess. And I'm actually pretty proud of it. I'm actually pretty proud of how much work I've put into it. It waxes and wanes as my interest in quality waxes and wanes, and our interest from other people waxes and wanes. And then Children of the Corn 30 is, it's not an anti-film, but it's basically one very long, the screenplay itself. There are two components to Children of the Corn 30. One is the screenplay that I've written. Two is the actual photography, the effects, the gore that my friend, who is the opposite of me in terms of film production, is going to bring to the table. But we set out, we basically just break every rule of film in Children of the Corn 30. Really dry jokes, dry in the drywall sense, not in the, that is the drywall adjective, is dry, by the way. When you want to say something is drywall-esque, you say dry. It's not related to dry humor, I don't think. And I think I'll leave that question there. I've misplaced some stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you very much for that.
Is there anything I didn't explain on the origin? Is any gaps in the origin story that anyone would like to know?
I feel technically as if you covered a few other questions that I had as well.
Please still don't skip over any because
Of course, of course. Of course.
it was more just my disorganized thought. I'm coming off of Adderall,
I'm.
so
Oh, I see. I see. Based off of how you did that, I'm gonna reposition my questions
okay.
so they make more sense.
Okay.
What do you think of yourself? Not as your content that you create, but as yourself and only you.
It's a difficult one to answer
Yeah,
directly.
It's a little plain. It's a little plain, but
I
try to
know if I
answer as
was
best you
like,
can.
if I was 17, I'd probably be like, I hate myself. You know, it's funny, you know. But I have to say that I've spent so much time with myself, if that makes any sense, that I don't really think in that kind of language anymore. Like, my opinion of myself, there's no dissonance there, you know. I guess recently I mean, I'm occasionally disappointed in myself for reacting in a way that reflects less discipline than I'd like. You know, I feel disappointment for not living up to what I want to be, or I feel pride when I do so, I guess. But I don't really, in terms of, I don't like, I wouldn't rate myself. I don't think. I guess if I rated myself, be like the best, you know, because there's really there's no self to analyze the self, you know. We're one and the same, so naturally my preferences are reflected in my actions, and therefore I really like everything I do. So
Ego.
yeah, you could say that. But the thing is, ego is kind of just a natural state. The only way you
Yeah.
have any dissonance there is if you're having communication issues. If you're unable to manifest what you want from yourself in reality. But you know, again, I think I'm actually going to throw this in instead of throwing this in the successes question. Probably a good way to answer this would be in a content perspective. So difficult to explain lightly. So I'm just going to dive right in. Because of what I just said, that my standards, you know, I'm one person, so naturally I like my preferences. I'm glad I am who I am. It's difficult to really, I'll just come out with it. Like, pretty much everything that I produce is my favorite of its type. I mean, like, there's an exception with autojournalism. That's my chosen career field. So that's really, like, that's less about expressing myself, and that's learning a skill. That's a challenge. But like Drycast, I'm a pretty big fan of Drycast because it is absolutely ridiculous in its best times. It's so much more entertaining than the majority of the podcasts that I hear.
Agreed.
But that, you know, I want to, this is part of the disclaimer, but I'll say it again. That doesn't mean that I expect anyone else to see it as the best podcast in any way, right? Because I understand what people want. That's part of being in media, is I understand that Drycast is an anti-podcast. I think that I really enjoy Honk. I don't want to say that Honk is the best car show. That's for sure. But I think I say some pretty fucking ridiculous things in Honk. And I think I actually have some unique perspectives occasionally. that's something to explain, I guess. On the do you like yourself question, I have this habit, I'm told, and I'm aware of it too. Like today, I was promoting Drycast, and I said episode 36 is definitely the best in a long time. I didn't say the best ever, but a lot of times when I produce something, I'll be like, definitely the best episode of Honk yet. And people are like, you say that about everyone, and I'm just like, well, that means I'm doing things correctly, right? 'Cause I'm improving.
That's exactly what it means.
That doesn't, like, ideally it would be every single new piece of content would be an improvement, but it actually usually is the majority of the time. Drycast is too big to really, I don't remember how good all the episodes were, so. Okay, I'm done. I'm done with the like me question, unless you'd rather me clarify something else.
No, you're good. Alright, well, since you think that you are generally good, and which you should think you're generally good, of course, I've heard you said you work at a gas station, correct?
I do.
And do you enjoy it there?
I do. For lots of probably pretty pretentious reasons.
And do you believe you do your job well?
That's a complicated question. I'm definitely not the worst employee there. However, I would rather do my job better than I have been. So there's some imperfections in the perfect David Blue. I've been slacking. But I could talk about my job more than you'd probably want to hear about it. But the way I think is in cycles. I talked about that. And I've had retail jobs before, and I'm usually I don't excel at them. But convenience is very, very, very quick. Customers come in, they don't want to talk to you, and a lot of people have a problem with that. A lot of people have a problem with customers not being polite to them. Whereas, like, if I'm on the clock, I'm an asset, nothing more. I'm not a human being. I'm an asset. And I've always been able to accept that. It's probably one of the very few qualities about me that would make me extremely valuable to the military. It's probably the only one, actually. But professionally, it's not that I am like really anal, you know? Like I'm not gonna tell anyone else like, well, you should have this mentality too. I did think that way during my edgy teen phase, but and it's not like I think about it constantly. It's not like I have an internal monologue that's like, David, step it up, professional, cold. I'm a cold-hearted retail sage.
Step it up, brother.
It's just like it comes naturally to me. I can't help but be in a professional mindset. And I excel at customer service because what I do is I familiarize myself with how to represent the company, not to answer questions as David Blue, but to answer questions as an employee of this company, right? And as long as you're hiding behind policy, it's not personal, So just someone could literally come up to me and just be like, "You massive cunt fucker, you big old, or you slim." Like, let's see something that would actually be honestly hit home. Maybe, I don't know. You skinny little chicken fucker. Now, see, if you said that to me, there's not much you could say to me that would hurt me, I don't think. But I'd be interested in anyone who has something to say. Anyone who'd like to hurt me verbally. I'd like to feel pain again. That'd be nice. Anyway, so yeah, job good. All my coworkers are intelligent. I like all of them. They like me to varying degrees. You can definitely have too much of David Blue. I've learned that over the years.
I could tell over your Snapchat stories.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My direct superior, so like one level above me, recently took a vacation, and he straight up told me, I'm taking 2 weeks off from you. Like, and yeah, I get that. I've recently definitely come to understand how this persona could get old, and it's I think a lack of genuineness, probably. I don't know.
I don't think generally old, but maybe overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah. I can relationship history. I could handle like 10 girlfriends.
10? I can handle maybe like 0.
Yeah, no, I could easily handle like 5 or 6 for sure. There's a lot of me,
Alright. You,
and that wasn't a
David
sex
Blue,
joke.
the big man.
I'm too big. I just can't go into buildings anymore.
Big man of woman.
Yeah.
The woman pleaser.
There's so much man in this body that really I'm there's enough David Blue to please every woman on earth. Who on earth is Facebook messaging me? I'm so sorry. That's not very professional. I've been in retail for a very long time. My bones are weary, and I'm losing everything. But my official position at my job is retail sage. It actually says it on my name tag. So I get paid at my job to look pretty and think about the world of sales. I know a lot of people when they're like, "Damn, you work at a gas station job, you know, that's gotta suck." Or, it's actually amazing because of how many people I get to see
Yeah.
daily, and because of how quick it is. I think I could honestly say I'm the fastest cashier there, and I enjoy my whirring fists. I enjoy making my fists whir. I enjoy that we have Andy Warhol inspired food pop art on the walls. That's very interesting. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something. Oh, but I get paid $10 an hour. Way better.
$10?
Yes, that's because I've been there a while, but it started out at 9, and that's definitely the most I'm gonna like. I'm not qualified for a job that's gonna make any more than that. So
I say we take a 10-minute break.
okay.
Somebody help me with more walk, 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 with more walk.
That's called spell. So we got audio, awfully high quality. This thing is gonna be.
And lastly, I think this will be the last question before our next segment that we'll be finishing off with. Do you enjoy your success with your project, not only considering hits, but considering your learning experiences from video editing to just general things in life?
You're picking up on this. Each question is a beautifully wrapped present, a beautifully wrapped indulgence in myself. I'm foaming at the mouth. My mouth's not just watering; it's actually foaming right now. So technically, a lot of the stuff I did in childhood was a lot more successful in drywall, which is funny. My aviation YouTube channel had nearly 100,000 total views before I shut it down. And I had a really shitty tech channel that had unboxings and reviews on it that had had 40,000 total views within months, and that's pretty much what the drywall channel has had after 4 years, almost exactly 4 years. So drywall basically, in terms of benefit to me and my success and learning experience, let's use that language. Drywall was an absolute success in that its purpose was basically just to unify whatever I feel like doing at the moment under one banner so that people can relatively easily find it. Any success in terms of engagement was a pleasant side effect, right? So if people want to watch it and it becomes big, if I become a net celebrity, cool. If not, not too worried about it, because if I was, I know I'd never get there. And of course, the result of so many years of content obsessiveness is a relative competence and familiarity with anything involved with making video and audio, from shot planning to, like, I can write screenplays now. I have a fairly extensive grasp of audio engineering as a concept in general. Editing, maybe my video editing, definitely. I've done a lot of video editing. No effects, but lots of Philip DeFranco level editing. I was watching Philip DeFranco when he was filming with his MacBook camera, by the way. Yeah. I'm not sure if I should be proud of that, but and writing, of course. Been writing and is involved in all of that, and basically just anything that's involved in contemporary net content production, I've got an ungodly amount of experience in, considering that I haven't done anything professionally yet. And when you're constantly switching between all these interests, you tend to keep the skills fairly honed. I generally pick up on anything involving this stuff very, very quickly. I have a genius level IQ, and I do pick up on this stuff quite fast. That being said, the joke where someone comes up behind you and taps you on the shoulder that they're on the side that they are opposite from, that has never not gotten me. So there we go. There's there's a disclosure. My success really came not, technically, actually, if you're measuring an engagement, I've gone downhill. But in terms of actual value to me, after all this time doing this, I realized that my strength doesn't lie with designed creation. I can't plan when I'm going to create something. I can't, I can, and I can create stuff that way, but that's not where my best work is. And I'm not really valuable under that kind of circumstance. So, it's not with creating content for a specific purpose or audience. My only valuable contributions are like little bits of really profound insight amidst like a torrent of just repetitive, unfiltered garbage. My best work is really like it only happens when I just kind of take my mind off the leash and work out something in real time. Honk, absolutely perfect representation of that. Honk is a ton of talking. It's like 20 minutes, and I do say some big things in there. I've made some genuinely, perhaps even new discoveries in Honk, but they're buried amidst a bunch of garbage, which is why I think I would definitely require a staff if I was ever to do an actual car show. I would require a script. I'd require, doing all the thinking beforehand. But as of right now, I'm strongest if I lay that pattern of repetition, as I was saying earlier, the foundation, and then I add layers of small, in the moment, improvised deviations on top of it, or just sort of like going through a maze. And if I'm able to do it correctly, it'll eventually add up to something genius or profound occasionally, which I thought myself pretty smart for coming up with this. So the intentional lack of preparation with the intent of encouraging instinctual thought or on the spot thinking means that you could describe this as like it's a very jazzy method of thinking. So I thought that was pretty, and again it's most obviously manifested in my piano improvs. Like we could have just linked, if you wanted to know how I thought or how I think, which I don't suppose that's what an interview's for, but minimal meta. But yeah, the result is that most of my content is pretty fucking boring unless you're listening or watching very closely, and you'll catch something and be like, damn. So really, I shouldn't publish any of it. I should be the one to go and find those little things and publish just those. But yeah, I've actually, my piano stuff can be, it's tremendously boring unless you're like sitting there with high quality headphones and you listen for the little rhythmic deviations that come out when I'm not thinking about it. But yeah, the result of the way that I think is lots of mediocre thinking out loud. And you can also see that manifested in this entire interview. I've repeated myself. I've probably...
Yeah, we got much of repeating up in here.
I've probably communicated a theme, but it took quite a bit of rephrasing. Ooh, I also wanted to bring up the expression hit or miss. That's like how I work, right? And drywall was the process of transitioning into this thinking originally, and now it's basically just become my banner. Not that I'm disowning the original parts of it. I just continue to add to it as I continue to add to myself. I'm also told, final bit, that I am fairly successful at being funny. However, it has to happen as a side effect of me creating something with a purpose other than explicit comedy. And this is one where I'm going to make a judgment. Stand-up is utterly ridiculous. Saying, at this location, at this time, I'm going to be funny, is just ridiculous. George Lopez has never, ever made me laugh. And I like, when I'm on a rant, instilling the fear of overpopulation of our horrible, crowded planet future, and I'm reiterating my argument that population is the underlying cause of pretty much every major human problem, contemporary human problem. I'm funnier than George Lopez accidentally doing that. That's the truth. And I'm done with that question.
I think a lot of people can be pretty funny, or more funny than George Lopez.
Okay, my point was that stand-up is just... like, everybody has the ability to be funny. You just have to be born fat. So that you have to develop it.
Somebody help me.
On our next segment, we will have our guests ask a few questions, and they will be introduced, starting with Travis.
Oh, no.
Wait. Oh, I didn't really think of a question to ask him.
Uh-oh.
I was just going to say that I disagree with him on the stand-up thing.
It's because you're a more purposeful person than me, Travis. You're more disciplined. I was kind of making a joke there. I don't care. I don't care.
It wasn't funny. I would have laughed at George Lopez, though.
Yeah, George Lopez makes fun of his own culture, and that's...
So does Kevin Hart.
Oh.
Yeah, but Kevin Hart's not a minority. Yes,
What?
he is. Never mind. I was thinking of a different person. Sorry. This is fun fact about David Blue. You know that isolated childhood thing?
Yeah.
Didn't consume much other than the History Channel. So,
I think every stand-up comedian makes fun of their own culture.
I mostly watch the Discovery Channel, National Geographic, and History Channel, and a lot of Charlie Rose.
Yeah, well, I was forced to watch that. But we're talking about me right now. Explicitly. I mean, usually I turn the conversation to me, but now the purpose of the conversation is me. This is
Next person will be Sim.
Yeah.
Anything to say, Sim? Or
Yeah,
Ed?
I have 2 questions.
all right.
All right, so number 1, so you've created this persona of David Blue in your online presence.
Mm-hmm.
What was it that made you drop the David K and become this David Blue character that we've all come to love? And what is the main difference between these 2 alter egos?
Well, we'd have to mention the sociopathic traits that I have. I think that in all the self-analysis that I've done, I've come to a conclusion, and that's that I have no one identity, or at least not one that I would be willing to talk about here, and it's not particularly relevant or interesting. David Kruzmark died on October 28th, 2011. That is when David Blue, the alter, which had existed but was growing, it was sort of an infantile. Ooh, I wanted to make an infant metaphor about how Drywall was like being a baby. I was like a baby intellectual then. It was like my intellectual toddlerhood. I worded that so well, but it's in a mess of words. Anyway, David Blue is a persona, yes, and there is nothing more. Well, there. Yeah.
I have another question. All right. Through your experience of filmmaking and content production, what was the most important lesson you've learned through this?
The most important lesson. Well, I'm a very prideful person, and so I don't think that I'd ever allow myself to even think that I'd learned a lesson.
Have you like grown any like new standards in your
Myself a
content
lesson.
production?
I've improved myself. I mean, I think I kind of went over how I've learned my strengths and weaknesses.
I wasn't there for that.
Well, essentially, I'm not gonna go over that again, but because I think I already was too long-winded for everyone. Pretty much the nature of everything, actually. I went from when I first decided that I was going to become an auto journalist, no understanding of what media was all about whatsoever. Didn't understand what made the industry tick, and now I think I explicitly acknowledge like what makes a successful media man more than the majority of the people that are in the industry. So I realized that in order to be successful, the nature of media is that you get people to look at your stuff, but they're not really, the money doesn't come from them looking at your stuff, it comes from looking at the ads that's right alongside it. So the whole key, this is why clickbait is so successful right now, it's literally all you need is to get them to that page, which is why I am so annoying with the Drywall URL. It's not because I particularly expect to make any money, right? Over the entire course of having ads in my videos, I've made something like $15. And I won't see that money till it hits 100. So, and that's 4 years. Now I could plaster the Drywall website in ads, and I'd probably make more, but I don't. I don't like that. There's no reason to do that. Drywall is not about making money. It's a massive money sink. How about I mention, while we're talking about Drywall, that I am currently in the hole $13,000 to Drywall. Anybody?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
$13,000 spent on general bills of hosting and domain costs, etc.
A big chunk of that is Children of the Corn 30. Big chunk
Wow.
of that. Yep, Drywall is expensive. So, that's okay, because I think that she
It
should
is
have unlimited time.
Alexa, the excited guest that's been screaming in the chat. Feel free to ask.
The weary. Sick
Hi,
guest.
Dave.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm functioning. I'm functioning.
Okay. My question is, do you think you would be as highly functioning as you are right now if you didn't have an Adderall dependency or an alcohol dependency?
I think that I can honestly say that my dependency on alcohol is probably less than it appears. This is water, by the way. I hope everyone knows that.
No, yeah.
Considering that I get really bored with getting drunk and I feel awful about myself if I don't produce any content, and the only content that I can produce drunk even mildly drunk, is dry cast, and have it turn out the way I want it to. So, alcohol dependency. I mean, I may have one. I'm getting pretty big. I weigh almost 150 pounds now. In fact, I think I actually topped 150, which woo! These pants won't button. Fun fact. Fun fact.
Show us.
No, I'm not going to show you that. Adderall dependency. Adderall is a tool that really all Adderall is a quick fix. You borrow some energy so that you can have like a big burst of focus, and then you have to crash later. If I didn't have Adderall, drywall would be pretty much the same. I'd probably be a bit sillier. I'd be a bit more youthful. Then again, given recent events, I also might be incredibly depressed. So I don't really know. If you want to, like, I went off Adderall for about a year after high school, and that's when I produced the Super Bowl, the Roundup Ready spaghetti ads. That was pretty ridiculous. Basically, I'm the same, just not quite as fast, but I'm a lot more consistent. I don't crash for 3 days, you know. But the only thing that would be affected, of course, is doing things that I'm not particularly interested in. Menial work at my job would suffer a lot. That's really all that Adderall adds. I think that the sleep deprivation that's been enabled by Adderall has probably taken a pretty big thwack at my memory. But I've never had a good memory. I don't know. It's hard for me to gauge, like... It's still hard for me to gauge, like, if I'm more or less coherent than I was a year ago. I even go back and watch videos to see if I can... But I watch it pretty closely, and I probably abuse Adderall less than you'd think. Today is a bad example. I've just been taking... As soon as I've started to feel tired, I've just taken another one. But,
Huh.
yeah. So,
Thank you for answering my question.
is that it?
Yes.
I'd like to add in that you should be careful for your bones and do not hit them on anything hard from all those amphetamines.
Really? Is that a thing?
Yes,
Oh.
it is.
Oh, because I'm whirring so fast.
Yes.
Because my frame is not designed for the speed that the stimulants enable. Okay.
And it will just destroy your bones.
I've been hearing some
in the long
creaking.
run.
I've honestly been hearing some creaking.
It comes up pretty fast.
Yeah. Sum myself up.
Feel free.
Hello, I'm David Blue. I am a media legend. I am a disciple of variety. I perhaps I'm reaching through my good friend Null, an audience that I wouldn't normally, so you wouldn't hear all my cult ramblings on Drycast. Those of you that find yourself often saying, "I hate people," I want you to think about that statement. I want you to really think about what you're saying. I want you to imagine a life living without anything that people have ever done, any human innovations, any but your own anyway. Actually, if you hate yourself, just really kill yourself. If you hate the species that much, if you were born in the species and you hate it,
Cut!
it might be good to end it.
Cut!
But otherwise,
Got it!
I would advise that you do what I did. Acknowledge the influence that religion has in the hate of your species that you have. I don't know why I'm looking at the camera because I'm not recording that. And realize that we are the most beautiful things in sight. And we probably will be for quite a while.
Cut.
Yeah.
Cut.
Woohoo!
All right. So what I think I might do